Hi, I'm Julie Simmons. I'm the Executive Director for NWHPEC. The following video is about challenges, the first step of the Improvement Kata. You're going to hear from Tyler Fife from BiAmp Systems, who's going to talk about BiAmp's journey with challenges. BiAmp started their Kata journey without a challenge, and you'll actually hear from Tyler about the struggles that they had and what many companies have when they try to do the Improvement Kata or really any improvement work without a challenge. Then Tyler will talk about their initial challenges, what they learned from them, and also upon reflection, additional learnings that they had about challenges that they put into place. Challenges are very important for any company who is striving to do improvement because they align the entire organization and focus everyone on the work that actually needs to be done. Without a challenge, oftentimes organizations will run multiple directions, everyone thinking that they're doing the right thing, but it's actually really not helping the company move forward. So I hope you learn from BiAmp's challenge journey, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you.
BiAmp has been experimenting with the Improvement Kata methodology for a few years now, and we've had some interesting learnings with challenges and what did and did not work for us. And I'm here to give you a local company's perspective with challenges and what it meant for us. So once again, my name is Tyler Fife. I'm the Process Engineering Manager at BiAmp Systems. We're an audio company. We design systems that would work in a room very similar to this. And we started with Improvement Kata, Coaching Kata about 3 years ago. Focus is going to be on challenge and setting the direction that the company really wants to go. So we're going to start with some concept work before we get into the local case study at my company. What is a challenge? It's a description of success 6 months to 3 years out. So think forward at that future time. Put yourself in the future date, and what does success look like for your company? One of the fun questions to ask yourself as you move towards this is starting with the question, would it be great if we could what? What would be great if you could accomplish it? Is it some new pattern of performance within your company? Is it a strategic differentiation or some initiative for your company? Something that you can't achieve right now? And when you're playing with these thoughts, you need to keep it relevant. You want to stretch people. You want to make sure that they're really thinking outside the box and they're not working within their current knowledge threshold. You want to get them out of their comfort zone, but it can't be impossible, right? You got to stay within some realms of feasibility. You want to make sure you're stretching people, but that you're not going to get them disenchanted because it's just too much for the company to strive for. So as we work with challenge, we get these thought starters. We've got a few questions here that helps us really get the frame of mind that we're going with. As some of the previous slides shown, what is the distant, very long-term vision for our organization? How can we take one step towards that vision? As esoteric or as out there as it could possibly be, what is one step in that direction? Because if you're going to keep working towards that vision, each one of these challenges should keep pointing you in that direction. And as you go about this, your vision may change a little bit. Something else to reflect upon is what do your customers value, whether it's quality, lead time, a product, a service, or a capability. What is it that they want from your company or your organization that they're not currently getting? What can separate you from your competitors? A flip side to that coin is, as opposed to what the customers want, is also how the market is evolving. What do you need to do to stay relevant to your market to make sure that you're not being left behind? I always kind of think of Blockbuster with that type of a question. Blockbuster got completely left behind as DVDs were able to be sent through the mail, and then all the movies were available online, right? They just completely got moved out of the marketplace. And that last question again, what does success look like a few years from now? Try to envision what that could be and how you could move there, and keeping it relevant but really stretching the people. This note at the bottom, cost cutting and efficiency are not good enough by themselves. They're a variable that we want to control. We want to look at cost and we want to look at efficiency, but it's not the end all. We really want to separate ourselves from our competitors, and just providing the lowest cost may provide some separation, but can you strive more than just that? So with the challenge, that's where we're able to link strategy and execution. So the leaders focus on the strategy and setting the high-arcing challenges, linking it to the vision, right? But then, once the challenge is set, it's time for the managers and their direct reports to start executing towards this, and that's where you get the personnel development, your professional growth, as the managers take the learners and coach them into greater capabilities than what you currently have. And this is where the company really starts to separate itself from its competitors. You're bringing everyone along to a greater capability state. You're all capable of more things than you were today, and that's able to push you to greater successes. Why is the challenge important? There's a few things up here to really hone in on it. It's to make sure that the various teams and departments do not get dragged down by problems. We don't want to be rushing out in the various directions. We want to stay aligned, right? And with that alignment, we don't want to work only within what we know. ROIs are a good way of evaluating whether the cost of something is significant or not. But it can't just be purely ROI analysis. It needs to be kept in mind of where are we trying to go to? What is this additional capability that we're working towards? And if we need to make an investment towards it, that's fine. We can't break the budget, but investments are okay as long as we're able to diversify our company and separate ourselves from the competitors. Another thing with the challenge is it avoids us from jumping to the random directions and to avoid the difficult obstacles. And that's going to be one of the things that we'll touch on at BiAmp, is that there are, in every company, there are some monuments. These things that this is the way we do it, this is the way that we have always done it, and we could do it different, but it's going to be really difficult to change. Some of that stuff needs to change. You need to be able to move past some of those cultural issues if you're going to be able to progress as a company. You can't always keep doing things the way they are. The last one, this is a really fun thing to talk about with some of your leaders. When you look at your systems and your processes, and you're evaluating how they work, typically we look at it with this light of the waste hunt. How can we improve upon what it is currently doing right now? It's 80% efficient. How can we make it 90% efficient? You can make it 95% efficient. And that's just improving upon the way that your processes work right now. And that's one approach to it. But what if you could just change the overarching nature of the processes and still try to make them as efficient as possible, but really accomplish the same task in a different way? So, brief intro to BiAmp Systems. For the most part, a majority of our revenue comes from commercial audio. We make audio servers, essentially. They are located in server rooms. They work for facilities just like this, for convention centers, for conference rooms, courtrooms, churches, things of that nature. We're just routing sound around for the commercial industry. Another aspect or another percentage of our revenue comes from paging systems. This is a developing market for us. Paging systems for airports, museums, hospitals, a tiered approach of communication. So you can talk to the entire building, or you can talk to just a small realm, a few select rooms, and to make sure that there's emergency backups in place such that if any catastrophe happens, the communication is not broken. For the most part, that means that within our manufacturing department, we focus on circuit board manufacturing, and we have a little bit of sheet metal production as well as final assembly. So these are the four main learnings that we've had at BiAmp. I'm going to talk very briefly about it here, and then I'll tell the story of Improvement Kata methods at BiAmp, and we'll come back to this, and we'll be able to link that story to these 4 bullet points. The funny thing when I was creating this presentation is, as I identified some of these learnings, you go back to the literature, or even to Mike's presentation in the morning, and you hear some of the same lessons, but hearing about it and experiencing it is not the same thing. Like reading through the literature the first time, the second time, you're going to pick up a lot of good information, and then you're going to start down the journey, and you're going to be like, well, that came up. And Mike said in his literature that was probably going to come up, but we couldn't avoid it. We just had to work through it, and it is what it is. It's okay. So for us, having a high-level challenge keeps us aligned. The second one, very important to us, skill development and current capabilities are important. Improvement Kata method is a skill, and we had to cultivate it, and it was difficult to do that, especially if we weren't keeping it in mind. A good challenge is clear, descriptive, and has a motto. The easier it is to understand the direction that we're going, the less clarifying questions and time that we have to spend trying to figure out what it really means. And the real obstacles will be found along the way. Elaborate more on that in a little bit. So our first attempt at Kata started about 3 years ago. Our manufacturing management team came to a seminar pretty much exactly like this, and we ended up deciding that the Improvement Kata coaching Kata methodology was going to be our way towards continuous improvement. We had some general continuous improvement methods in place. Not too structured, but we were always looking at our processes, trying to make things better. But when we tried to bring the Improvement Kata pattern into our facility, and we look at these 4 steps, we failed pretty significantly. So when it comes right to the beginning, understanding the challenge, well, there was no overarching challenge. We said this is the way that we're going to do continuous improvement. So if we use like a water line to determine how well we're working on these 4 steps, right off the bat, we got it wrong. We set challenges at the process level. No high level challenge, just really low level process levels. And we had 2 primary patterns for it. The first one was, okay, what's the future state process loop look like? How could we make this process significantly better? The second one, well, so-so. We would do random continuous improvement or countermeasure projects. It's very similar to how we were already working. We were just trying to take this pattern and overlay it with our old habits. Not trying to develop new habits, but use old habits with a different pattern. And when that meant that we went to grasp the current condition, so-so results. And our target conditions would be fairly weak off of it too. It'd still be within what we already know. We've already cultivated that information. We know this stuff. Oh, this is the next direction we're going to go. Time for a countermeasure project. And our iterations towards target condition were pretty minimal success. There wasn't a lot of professional growth. Learners were not really developing. In some katas, we were actually rotating learners from a week-to-week or cycle-to-cycle experiment. So the focus wasn't on one person and developing one person at a time. It was just kind of, how can we move forward on this project? So Improvement Kata methodology should be, we're developing people to think scientifically, to experiment, to learn, so we can get greater results. What was the result of this pattern, right? By summer of 2013, we were done. It was over. All Improvement Kata efforts in our facility had stopped. There was lots of challenging of direction, what we were working on, and while we had made some gains, there wasn't any significant improvement in processes, there wasn't any significant improvement with our people, and our customer definitely wasn't seeing anything at all. It was just all internal. So shortly after that, our director of manufacturing, who had been with BiAmp for quite a while, decided that she wanted to retire. And we had a new director come in, Steve Vickers. And with his previous experience, he really wanted to focus on lead time. The lead time to our customer is 1 to 3 days. So we typically have a finished good inventory right before packaging, and we just keep that stocked. But the lead time through the facility was 10 to 15 days. So we always need a nice big buffer of material there to make sure we had whatever the customers were ordering. Whether sales was really high or really low, we had to make sure we managed that fluctuating demand. As Steve was getting his feet wet and getting comfortable, he was visiting his managers, his direct reports, and he ended up finding the Toyota Kata book. And in his own words, once he read the book, he's like, this is gold. This is what we need to bring here. We need to bring this in properly. I don't know why it failed before. Don't really care. We're going to try to get this right. So he had the lead time goal challenge in mind, and he saw the Toyota Kata methodology. He's like, here's our challenge. And it wasn't phrased like this at the beginning, but we were trying to get to a lead time end to end in 3 days. The caveat to it, though, was that he really wanted to get there using the Toyota Kata methodology, or the Improvement Kata methodology. And to help facilitate this, I mean, the goal was going to be a department-wide goal. It's upon every person within the manufacturing department to be working towards this, right? So we have this nice alignment because we have this nice, high, overarching goal. But he also focused on creating a Lean committee, 6 guys who were very adamant or wanting to prove themselves within the company to help move forward with this. And they were going to kind of act as that, how can we bring continuous improvement out to the production floor? So we have this challenge, 3-day lead time by September 2015, using Improvement Kata, Coaching Kata. And this started about a year ago. So the challenge was roughly 18 months out. Cut the lead time to about a third or a fifth of what it was fluctuating around within 18 months. It's pretty aggressive. And that Lean committee that I was a part of, all of us were very passionate about wanting to try to get there. But we all had different ideas about how we could make that happen. What is the right way of getting to that point? So we immediately reverted back to our normal habits, right? Started having meetings, trying to make decisions in the meetings about how we were going to get there. And it easily turned into the loudest voice syndrome, where everyone's trying to propagate their idea, and the most persuasive person's idea kind of holds at the end. But with this particular group of individuals, it didn't really stick. Our decisions would be pretty weak at the end of these meetings, and since everyone didn't have that buy-in, since everyone was promoting their own idea, but we couldn't come together on one idea, there was no strong ownership at the end of these meetings, right? So it was kind of like, well, we could all pursue our own ideas, or we could go back to our other responsibilities, because this was the added task. This was the thing that we were doing as additional to our day-to-day stuff. So after we did that for a few months and got ourselves fairly frustrated, we ended up saying, okay, switch gears. One thing that we're pretty sure of is that if we're going to get there with the 3-day lead time, this is a department goal, everyone in manufacturing needs to work towards it, we need to bring the Improvement Kata method to everyone. We need to figure out how to deploy it across our manufacturing department. So we brought in Julie to act as an external coach for us. She's been a great second coach to help guide us through the pattern. And we tried to deploy as quickly as possible. We tried to get improvement katas in all the various areas that we thought were relevant right off the bat. And some were failing. Some were really struggling. We weren't really developing the skill set that we needed with them. So after a few months of kind of banging our heads against the wall of trying to deploy as quickly as possible, we learned that we needed something else. The Lean Committee needed a challenge just focusing around Kata skill development. So we ended up looking at our manufacturing org chart. And there's a slightly simplified version of it. I mean, there's a lot more direct reports and direct labor within this structure. But when we looked at our org chart, we said, if we're going to be able to move towards our 3-day challenge, where do we need to develop the skill set at to be able to create this second coach, first coach, learner roles? Primarily geared towards getting it onto the processes first. We wanted to deploy towards the processes. So the Lean Committee was like, well, if we're going to be the shepherds bringing this in, if we're going to be the advanced team looking at bringing the skill set into the company, we've got to advance up to second coaches. We need to know what we're talking about. And the Lean Committee was spread out through the org chart. But where do the learners go? Well, it would be great if we could get everyone to be a learner in some capability. So we targeted everyone. It's a bit ambitious. We're not really sure how we were going to be able to get to all of that right off the bat. We set this challenge about a year or 9 months ago or something like that. But that was what we perceived that we needed at the time. We needed to be able to cultivate the skill set and promote it out. And we ended up targeting kind of the middle tier of management to be first coaches. So we could really focus on that learner-first coach relationship near the processes. Now, this is a different approach than has been outlined in Mike's literature. It typically talks about get an advanced team, similar to our Lean committee, and then go top down. And I think that would have really good buy-in with most companies, because you develop the skill set up high and they naturally fall into the second coach, first coach, learner role as you keep pushing it down into the organization. We're very lucky to have a leadership team supporting us as we've just kind of went for a middle implementation, right? We're trying to deploy the learners everywhere. We're trying to cultivate first coaches into the middle of this org chart, and it seems to be working just fine for us. The interesting thing for us is, as a Lean committee, we're now starting to see the 3-day lead time as an outcome to this challenge. If we can keep working on everyone's skill set, if we can cultivate all of these people and have them working towards the goal of 3-day lead time with the right pattern, we will get to the 3-day lead time. We will be able to do that because everyone will be on that same page, using the same language, the same methodology to review the processes. So if we go back to this flow chart that we had a few slides ago and how we were doing during our initial attempt compared to how we're doing now, our challenges are much better. We have the overarching challenge, and the challenges at the process level are really starting to get dialed in to point to this is what we need to have happen here. If we can have this happen, not sure how we're going to exactly get it done. That's for the learner to figure out with the aid of the coach. But we need this in some way to be able to get to the 3-day lead time. And we started playing with the process analysis steps in the Kata literature and working outside of the way that we normally did our business, right? We're reviewing our processes in a new and different way, and then we complement it with the information that we already had, because there's still valuable information there, but we didn't just take that information as the gospel. We said, no, we need some other information to help us review our processes. When it comes to the target conditions, this is actually a place of development for us right now. We are cultivating the skill set, but there is still a lot to be learned here. We're doing better, significantly better, but there's a lot of people that are curious, what's the best way of establishing target conditions? What's the best way of meeting them? But our experiments are significantly better because we're continuing to focus on the learning. It's about cultivating people, experimenting, and letting them learn so that we can get closer to this lead time challenge. Bring it back to results, right? So we've got two sets of results that we're looking at. Of course, the lead time, but also the skill set. Well, when we started the skill set challenge in September of last year, we didn't have any trained second coaches. We had one trained first coach and one capable learner. And this is stacked, right? So any of the second coaches could also be first coaches. Any of the first coaches could also be learners. Our lead time during September was 14 days. Well, as we've been able to improve our skill set, we now have more second coaches. We now have more first coaches. We have 5 capable learners, 4 more in training, and our lead time has been cut in half. Now, the lead time is not solely affected by the Lean Committee or by these Improvement Kata efforts. There's lots of variables there, but we have been able to contribute towards it while also spreading the Improvement Kata method throughout our organization. Bringing it back to the 4 main points that I started with. High-level challenges keep people aligned. 2 things that really stick out to me here. 1, our first attempt at it fell flat. First attempt at bringing Improvement Kata methodology did not work out because we didn't have the overarching challenge. We didn't have something to keep us all working towards it. And these questions of, is this the right thing to work on? Or do we have the right momentum to keep doing this, just went away once we had the high-level challenge. For us, the second bullet point can't be big enough. Focusing on skill development ended up improving our lead time. You will get results using this method. Using the Improvement Kata method, you can get results if you're practicing it the right way and you're pointing people in the right direction. But most likely you don't have the skills at your company innately. You have to really focus on developing them and developing your learners to experiment and work outside of what their comfort zone is. It also moved our Lean committee to become basically an advanced group. We may change the title of our group or not. Regardless, we are the ones bringing in the skill set to our company. A good challenge is clear, is descriptive, and has a motto. It's interesting as you play with challenges early on. They can be a little bit vague. They might be number-based. They might be pattern-based. But after a while, you really start to see challenges where you're just like, right, I know exactly what you want. It only takes 1 or 2 times reading and thinking about it. You're like, that's what we need. And then the Improvement Kata, Coaching Kata finds and addresses the real obstacles. One of our real obstacles was the culture surrounding continuous improvement within BiAmp. It's not that we didn't want continuous improvement, we just didn't have a steady, repetitive way to go and look at our processes in the same language, in the same methodology, and to let everyone reflect upon it and go, yeah, that's where we need to go. That's where we're at right now. That's our current condition. This is the next step towards the challenge. We don't know what the step after that is. Doesn't really matter. We're taking it one step at a time. So as you end up leaving here, hopefully you have a sense of what challenges are, but it's definitely the main question to ponder before you get started down the Improvement Kata methodology, which is, what is your organization's challenge?